Hey everyone, it's Terry with Terry's Tidbits, and this is the Advanced Admin Study group that you are watching. This is week 7 of a 13-week series that we're doing, and we talked today about data management concepts, and that's 10% of the exam, and we hit the first 2 topics on that this week. Next week we'll wrap it up. And let's just jump in and get started. All right, welcome everyone. This is the 7th week. So we're over halfway now. We have 13 weeks of this study group and we are on week 7. So we've hit the halfway mark. Today's topic, we're going to start off with the some Q&A stuff from the quiz examples that I've got written up and prepared for you. And then we'll do that maybe for 10 or 15 minutes most, and then we'll go ahead and jump into the presentations on validation and duplicates all around data management. I think we have one more data management topic next week, and that will take care of I think data management's 10% on that part of the exam. So let's go ahead and do a few questions just to kind of see how we're doing. And I think that's this one. All right, so I'm just going to kind of randomly call on some of you. So if I can find your names. I'll start off. CloudKicks would like to make their knowledge base publicly available in their customer community. What setting controls that? And Jude, I've got your name first.
Enable knowledge topics, letter A.
Enable topics. Anybody agree or disagree? Want to challenge that response? You guys are all way too nice. All right, so let's try it out. All right, very good. Knowledge topics. Excellent. Number 2, this will go to Rebecca. If the price book is changed on an opportunity that has existing product line items, what will happen? Choose one.
I think B.
All right. Anybody want to challenge that response? I'm pretty sure this one actually, I've seen this question before. I don't know if I've seen it on an admin level exam or at least an iteration of it, or if it was on the advanced admin, but might be good to know. Everybody good with that answer? All right. It is A, the product line items will be deleted. And if you think about that, what if you had products on your opportunity that aren't a part of the new price book, that they wouldn't have any home to go to? So it gives you warnings, but it will get rid of those line items, and you'll start all over.
Will it remove it from any closed opportunities?
I think that's where I was
No.
thinking it.
Okay.
Okay.
If your opportunity is well, I don't. That's a good question. I don't know if I know off the top of my head the answer to that, because it may just stop you from doing it.
That's what was a little
answer.
tricky about that, because I'm thinking like closed opportunities, would it just like it can't remove it from closed opportunities?
If that makes me want to go try that out. I will come back to you on that and see, because if it is, I could see it just not even allowing us to do it on a closed opportunity, but I'll try that out. Andrew, I've got you next. CloudKicks has a service level agreement that requires a response in 24 hours, Monday through Friday. What feature would be set to prevent escalation rules from occurring over the weekend?
I believe it's D, escalation criteria.
Anyone want to challenge that one? Everybody agree? Disagree?
I would challenge
All
business
right.
hours.
Okay. You think it's business hours?
That was my
Okay.
guess.
Yes, I second that. I think it's business
Yeah.
hours too.
Oh, all right. Let's check it out. Yeah, business hours is the correct one. Very good.
I'd like to change my answer.
There you go. Right. Yeah, I'm sure they'll let us do that when we take the exam too. The next time we go through the exam after we pay the fee for the round 2. All right, Boone, I've got you up. Ursa Major has multiple sales team products sold to manufacturers on the West Coast will be sold in a slightly sold at a slight discount to offset tax incentives that were available in other areas. How would Maria, the Salesforce admin, set this up to track?
I'm reading through these. I'm going to say C, create a new price book.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
Well, I just finished reading all of them. I would struggle between products are sold to manufacturers on the West Coast, sold at a slight discount. It's that discount that's making me lean towards D, but because answer C makes it sound too easy. So,
okay, anybody want to help him out?
I think C. I would second that if I were
I
to guess.
I was also
Okay.
thinking C.
Okay,
let's leave it C then.
all right. And C is good. Good job. Excellent. All right, number 5. Let's see. Oh, your names are all switching around on me, the order. Patrick, we'll go with you. Which of the following methods can be used for adding quotas to collaborative forecasts? There's 2 right answers here. So adding quotas to collaborative forecasts.
I believe it's B and C.
You say B and C?
Correct.
User record and data loader. All right. Oh, we got one of the 2 there. I should have asked if anybody wanted to challenge that or go any further.
You made me feel really confident, Terry.
Real quick before you,
Yeah, go ahead.
real quick on that.
Yeah.
Is that, where's that that stored? What I was thinking in my head it was stored on the user record.
That's what.
Yeah, it is not. It's in its own custom object, and I
Oh,
forget
that's
what
right.
I forget the name of that object. It may just be quotas.
Yeah, because you have to set it when you set up the forecast.
Yeah, there is a user interface piece to doing it, but it's real cumbersome. And the recommendation, from what I was remembering, they recommend you do it through the API or through data loading. All right, let's take Marciana for you on this one. CloudKick's Lightning Knowledge Manager has published numerous articles, but their users aren't able to see them. What setting needs to be enabled to grant read access? So read access to knowledge articles.
I am dancing between A and B. And they just need to be able to read it, right?
You need to be able to read it. Yeah. Anyone want to help her out? Well, maybe I caught all of you on this one. Maybe we'll see.
I think, yeah, I would say D.
Check knowledge user on the user record. Okay. Other thoughts? Which one do you want to land on, Marciana?
Um. Well, that I was thinking D2, but I thought that would be just for view and edit and kind of like write the articles as well. That's why I was just thinking A and
Good.
that's why I was dancing around A and
Yep.
B. So
I'd go with
enlightenment,
A.
I know in classic, I think that's what I'm trying to figure out. Enlightening, is there a knowledge object or do you just need the permission for it? That's where my head is at.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna go with the first one and let's see what the right answer is then.
Okay.
There it is.
So it does have a okay.
Grant read access to the knowledge object. All right, let's do Matt. I'll let you take this next one and we'll have this be our last one for today. Lightning Knowledge, another one on knowledge, uses what feature to classify types of articles?
I'll say A, libraries.
Okay, any challenges to that answer?
Actually,
I'm thinking, oh,
yeah, sorry, I immediately doubt myself after I said that. I think it might be data categories.
Okay, data
yeah,
categories.
I second that one.
Okay. Anybody else?
I would say D, record types.
I was going to
Okay.
say record types as well.
Yeah, I'd second D.
All right, we've got 3 of you with D and 2 on data categories, and D is correct. Yeah. Now the key there is Lightning. It is definitely different if you're not in Lightning. I think it is actually referred to as article types in Classic. So awesome, very good, nice job. That was kind of fun. I will stop sharing and we will jump into our presentations. And the first one of you who is up is Rebecca. So I will let you share and go through validations.
Sorry, I'm trying to maneuver my monitors. Okay, can you guys see that okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so my topic for this week is data management and talking specifically about data validation. So data validation means actually checking the accuracy and quality of the data before you actually input it into the system. So it's before the data gets in there, so making corrections or making adjustments before. 4 types of ways to validate that I researched. So there's pick lists, required fields, lookup filters, and then validation rules. And not mentioned, but click's not code, right? But you can also do it programmatically. So pick lists themselves, those help simplify the data entry and standardize values. So you're not letting your users just put in whatever information they want. Some of the key parts are making sure that there is kind of a comprehensive list, but also at the same time not having a ridiculous number of pick list options, so it's not going overboard. Also not having really long entries, so if it's 5, 6, 7 word pick list values, that's not ideal either. So there are 3 types of pick lists. There's standard, so those are the ones that come in this system when you actually just purchase Salesforce. So you're talking like lead source, you're talking opportunity stage, things like that. Those are predetermined, they're pre-created. You have custom, which those are the ones that we create day in, day out. And then there's also multi-select custom pick lists, and that's where they can choose multiple values within that pick list. Okay. Custom pick lists, you can enter in various values, you copy and paste from Excel or just type them in, or you can use a global value set. And global value sets, those you create from the setup menu. It's not tied to a singular object, but it's really helpful when you're creating pick lists that might span multiple objects. So if you have a pick list that's maybe on a lead, on an account, potentially on a contact, and you want the same values, use a global pick list or a global value set rather for your pick list so that all of the options are the same across all objects. And then also if you have additional values, you just have to add it to one pick list set versus having to set it on all the different objects. You also have restricted pick lists. So that's something that you set when you're actually creating that field. You can determine whether there can be exceptions to that. So if you upload via or you enter in via an API, will it allow values outside of what you have set as the pick list value set? And as far as the pick list options, you can add them over time, you can delete them, you can deactivate them, and then you can also update those values. So if your company decides to use abbreviations and then they decide to list out a whole word instead, or go from using the abbreviation for Kansas instead of the word Kansas, and then they change their mind later, you can actually change those pick list values and you're just updating the label. It doesn't change the API, which is pretty nice. So if you happen to use them in any sort of coding or anything like that, you're not having to worry about updating that. Okay, so this is what it looks like when you're creating a pick list. As I mentioned, you can enter a global pick list value set. You can enter the values on their own. There's a couple of other options, if you want them alphabetically, if you want to choose something specifically as the default value. By default, it's choosing this, but then they could also choose from the other options if they want. And that last option, restrict pick list to the values defined in the value set. That's what I was just talking about. So you can say only these options are allowed so that you can't enter in other options via data loader or API. We also have dependent pick lists. So this just furthers that data quality control by setting up a controlling field and then having a dependent field. So you are able to pick some sort of value in a pick list based on what you choose somewhere else. Okay. So do you guys know what two types of used for the controlling field? We're talking field types. When you create a new field, you have to choose the type of field. Do you guys know this answer?
Another
Anyone?
pick list and a checkbox.
Yeah, you got it. So these are the only two types of fields that can be used as the controlling field. And you can see just use a field dependency matrix to select which pick list values to assign to each controlling field. So across the top where it says rating, that's just an example. That's you have that's the controlling field that you see across, and then below that you see all of the options, the high, low, and medium. Those are all of the dependent pick list options. So in this matrix, you choose for each column which options are applicable. Okay. So just in general, not all pick list fields can be controlling. And when I say fields, not all pick list types. So we're talking standard, custom, and multi-select. Not all of them can be controlling and dependent. This is pretty, I think, important to know. So standard pick list fields cannot be dependent fields. They can only be controlling fields. And then multi-select pick list fields cannot be controlling fields. They can only be dependent fields. And I think that's just because you could potentially choose that dependent field would have to select which options for all four options each choose in the multi-select. And that just does not work. But then custom pick list fields can be controlling or dependent. Those are the most applicable types. Okay. And the true or false. Do you guys know? So record type pick list selections, and that's when you're editing a record type and the pick list options for each record type. Can that override dependent pick list selections made with a matrix? So if the options you choose for cold are high and low, can that override, or is that overridden if in the record type you choose high, low, and medium?
Yes.
No, it's actually false. So, and I'm sorry, I know that's kind of a weird way to word it maybe, but the record type pick list when you're selecting it there, you can control which ones are ultimately allowed. But if that's actually narrowed down in that dependency matrix, you're only going to see in that dependent pick list for that record type which ones were selected in that matrix. Does that make sense? Or did I
So,
know it's kind of wordy.
so a clarifying question on that. If my record type doesn't allow me to see low and the rating is cold, does that mean I don't see any options at all?
As far as I know, yes, but I don't know if anyone knows. Based on what I was reading, yes. I don't know if anyone.
Restate that question.
You're asking me to restate that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just, does the record type, if your matrix makes it so that you only see one option, and that one option is not visible because of your record type, what's specified in the record type, I'm guessing that pick list doesn't show you any options at all at that point.
And you're talking from what the user would see if they were on an actual record page.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a good one, honestly, to play around with. From what I read and what I understood, yeah, I think because if you're saying no, it's not available on this record type, then it wouldn't be in the drop down, right? And so if that's the only option, the drop down, I think we probably be left with NA.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah, if it's not available in the record type, you won't see it.
Mm-hmm. And then kind of like what I was saying, if you allow 3 options here, if I said under cold, you're allowing high, low, and medium, but on the record type itself, you're narrowing that down. Or vice versa, if you say on the record type you can have a high, low, and medium, but here on the matrix you're narrowing it down, then it's only going to show that option. So it kind of, both of them work together to narrow down, and neither of them are really opening them back up per se. You can't open it.
That's a good that's a good way to look at it.
That's how I took your question, I guess, when I looked at it as far as the record type overriding it. If you don't have it available on it, it'll override what you have available.
I was going to find a good way of like wording that, and it's just kind of, without getting like super wordy, it's kind of hard to put
I
that,
got you.
but hopefully you guys understand.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So next, I'm going to move on to required fields. I think we're probably all pretty familiar with required fields. So I wanted to just maybe touch on some high points for it. So first of all, universally required fields, or I tend to call them globally required. They are, which is not the right terminology. Universally required is what they call it technically. They are fields that are required, that they require a value in order to actually save the record. So you can't save it without having it, that red asterisk, right? So you can only create universally required fields as custom fields. If they are standard fields, they're either required by default from the system when you get the system in general, and you are not able to change that, or they are not required and you can't change that. Okay. Some considerations when you are creating required fields. So required fields, when they are universally required, they are required for all record types for all users. There's no exception to that. And edit pages always will display that field, no matter if they can see it via field level security or not. So not necessarily when you're looking at the page itself, but when you hit edit, it will always be there. When you have a universally required field, they cannot be selected as read only on the page layout. So when you're editing the field on the page layout and you hit the edit option, it will let you mark it as read only or as required. You can't do that for universally required fields. That has to be set at the field level. So quick create, that is the one kind of that's something that does not enforce that universally required field, because it's just like a subset of fields. That's the one kind of oddity to remember, the quick create. And then also any mass import must include the field or it will fail.
Unfortunately, the quick create is not in Lightning, so they eliminated that feature, which is fantastic.
Yeah,
that was,
I don't understand how that can bypass it, but it did, right?
Yeah.
So fields can be made required on page layouts. That's, when I'm editing my page layout, again, I can make it read only or I can make it required. You can bypass that via data loader. So if you make it required just on the page layout, not on the field, that can be bypassed by data loader. Data loader checks to see if the field, when you like at the field level, is actually required, but it doesn't check it on the page layout. Next, I'm going to talk about lookup filters. So lookup filters allow you to narrow down the records that are options when you are using a lookup field on a page. So for example, a contact lookup would only let you look up the contacts that are maybe associated with a records associated account. In the example that's posted there, you can see the filter says you can only use contacts associated with the account ID that's on the case's account ID. So if the contact is Bob Smith from ABC Companies and the account on the case is XYZ Companies, you will not be able to use that field. Okay. Just so you guys know, that is not the case necessarily in Classic. So in Lightning Experience, all of you specify them as optional or not, which is an option when you're creating this. And in Classic, if you marked it as optional, they could actually bypass that. And if you typed it in, if you typed in Bob Smith with ABC Companies, it would accept it. That is not the case in Lightning, which is, I think, what they're testing on now. Obviously, in Lightning, if you try to type in Bob Smith with ABC Companies, but the case has XYZ Companies as the account associated with the case, it will not let you save it, even though you've marked it as optional. And last but not least, I'm going to talk about validation rules. So validation rules, I think when I talk about data validation, this is automatically where my head goes. This is the big one. So validation rules verify that data entered by users meets the criteria or the standards that you specify before they can save it. So it could be a formula and expression. It ultimately will read as true or false. So it just says, you know, does this field have a certain certain format or whatever it happens to be, and if so, then true, if not false. If it comes back as true, then you can create the record. If it comes back as false, then you will not be able to create the record. It will display an error message. Okay? Rules can be created for objects. They can be created for fields. They can be created for campaign members and case milestones. Those are the 4 things that rules can be created for. This can be used to do things like prevent certain users from creating or editing records. So if you say a certain user with a certain role can't edit a record, then you could actually use a validation rule to make that happen. So maybe it's just they can't update certain record types or something like that. You can use a validation rule where they'll look at the role of that user, it'll see that it's false, and it will stop them from editing it. You can use it to create field standards like phone number, social security number. You can also make one field required if another value is selected somewhere else. So for example, if an opportunity is marked closed lost, you can make another field, maybe lost reason, required with a validation rule. Lost reason, you wouldn't want that to be filled in unless that closed lost is selected. And this is just a quick look at a validation rule setup. So the first, there's kind of 4 different things. So first you have to describe what you're trying to do. And this is maybe more just for yourself. So you have to write out a rule that says, like I want to validate that the range between 2 custom fields, salary min and salary max, is no greater than 20,000. So you're writing out what you want to do. And then next you create the actual formula that will accomplish what you're describing. After you create that formula, then you will put in an error message. And so that error message is what the user will see if they try doing something outside of that rule. So if it doesn't, if it comes back as false, then what's the error message going to be? That's generally, best practice. Give them help so that they know how to fix their error. Don't just give them a generic, you can't save it message. And then also you can choose where to actually display the error. So you can display it at the top of the screen, or you can display it by the field that actually has the error. And that is all I have. So there's my courses. A big one, if you guys aren't using Focus on Force, the Advanced Admin Study Guide, it's paid, right? But I was able to get a lot of good information from it.
Excellent. Well done. Any questions on validation? All right, I'm going to share my screen one more time before we go to the next presentation, because I was playing around with the deleting or the changing of the price book that has line items. So I've got an opportunity record here. I've got my price book listed here, and I've got a product on it. And if I try to change that, we'll go from, oh shoot, I forgot what it was. I think it was custom. I'll go to standard and hit save. I actually am getting an error message that is not letting me make the change. And I find that interesting. And it's interesting because when I look at this help and training article, if you change a price book that has on an opportunity that has products, all products are deleted from the product related list, but the value of the opportunity remain. So what I'm seeing versus what is in the help and training are two different things. So that is interesting. I don't know that I've seen those contradict each other before. So in the past, and it maybe this is what it is, new behavior and lightning, but in classic, and that could be what this article is from too, it would delete that product. The amount here listed here is the 100,000. That's the piece that they're saying would have stayed. So doesn't look like
you don't
we
have a
can.
validation rule on your opportunity, do you?
I think I do. It's a good one. It is possible.
Sounds like someone was listening.
Yeah.
Validation rules.
Let's check that out. I'm not. Yeah. No validation rules. So I'd be curious if you guys set something up in your orgs, see what it does, because I thought that was a little surprising to me. All right, and so with that, I will stop sharing that. I just wanted to go back to that one since we talked about it, and we will go to Scott. I think you are up next, right?
Yes.
All right, and Scott has duplicate management.
And if I can switch it, I guess not. So we're talking about managing duplicates. I just started with resources in the beginning. It's tied into data quality, some of the best practices, and if you wanted more information on minimizing and merging duplicates, here are some additional resources. So with managing duplicates, we're going to go over what is managing duplicates, where do you find them, when do you use them, and some of the tools. And I got some overlap at all with that with data enrichment. So I'll and then some of the gotchas considerations. When it comes to matching rules and duplicates, you basically can, through setup, you can find the matching rules. If you haven't gone into those in a while, they help identify those duplicate records, and they work hand in hand with duplicate rules to determine what do you do with those duplicates once you have them. And you can use that to prevent duplicates on leads, contacts, accounts, and also custom object records. And the combination is used to identify and handle these duplicates. When it comes to out of the box functionality, you have some standard ones. For example, like you could have lead when the first name and last name equal or exact when it comes to leads, but you would have to create some custom rules if you wanted to do what's called a fuzzy match. Let's say you have Tom versus Thomas, and you wanted to match that to an exact email address to help find those duplicates. And in a sandbox or with your org, you can have all the matching rules you want, but if there's no duplicates to manage that are active, it won't find anything. So I found that I haven't played with duplicates and matching rules in quite some time. So when it comes to duplicate rules, which is the counterpart for matching rules, there's two options you have. You can alert the user and have them report the users creating a duplicate, or you can completely block the creation or editing of that duplicate record. And those are your two options with duplicate rules. When it comes to duplicates in Lightning, you have what's called a potential duplicate component. I'll just reiterate again, you have to have those duplicate rules active in order for that to work. And going back to that scenario, you can have a fuzzy match first name, and they have to have both the matching rules and the custom duplicates active at the same time in order for that to work. And here's an example of Tom versus Thomas Christie for that. When it comes to elaborate, there's a lot of relation with duplicates, duplicate rules, duplicate jobs. When you have duplicate rules running, a duplicate job will help you find those duplicates in existing data. You can run matches one at a time. You could do it manually through that potential duplicate component, or you can do it from a list. They can be found globally across the org. These are used in Lightning, and you can set these duplicate jobs up in setup. Once the jobs are set up, they can run them on custom objects, but you cannot compare on merged records. And duplicate record, can be used to share results of duplicate jobs with reporting. And here's an example of using those duplicate record sets, and it's a little bit different setup when you're doing it in Lightning versus doing it in Classic. And here's an example. This is from Salesforce's help. So when in Lightning Experience, you can merge it directly by selecting this tab over here called Conversion Compare. And when it comes to, and I'll skip over this, you can enrich this information with third party, but we're going over that next week. And some of the best practices with merging duplicates is you ask your users to use to search for these records before creating, standardize those conventions for names and addresses, automating the cleansing use of data tools, and generate a data backup on a regular basis using export. And some of the gotchas with Lightning Experience, you can merge up to 3 records, but you have to select a master record and field value to retain what can be selected. Duplicate rules when creating it with quick create, and perhaps only in Classic, but also when it's restored with undelete button or manually merge, these things won't find these duplicate rules. Won't run it for these duplicate rules. A number of duplicates and matching rules, you can have up to 5 per object, up to 3 matching rules per duplicate rule, 1 per object, and duplicate record set generation, you can do up to 100 per duplicate record set. Duplicate jobs are only available in performance and unlimited editions. And question I have here, as a Salesforce administrator, for merge concepts, you're given the task of merging the account and contact records, options A, B, and C, and D. What would those? What would be the correct answer for that? Does anyone, or maybe I'm going too fast?
I'm just reading through it. Anybody want to take the answer?
probably go with D because it's got the Pokeball next to it already.
Yeah, it already has the marking on
It
it.
is D with the Pokeball. You are correct.
Very good.
And that's it. I mean, I did a little bit more than I should have with enrichment, but I took that out. So,
Oh, sure.
but and any questions? Can I go over anything, or I'll be happy to do so.
So Patrick, I know you use duplicate rules quite a bit. Any best practices or things that you've learned from duplicate rules that might be helpful?
Not a ton. They can be a little tricky, as I found, especially if you know that records are duplicates. It won't always pop that they're duplicates. So on that, but just being very careful when writing those matching rules, I think, and your if and ands, ors statements is always something to remember.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Can you run reports on potential duplicates to help with like cleanup type of stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So there is a report type called duplicate records you can run. Even my org, who's been around since 2000, we've never run them, and I found records without record types at all. So that was an easy find to clean up.
Yeah, you'll actually see an object, a tab, sorry, called duplicate record sets. So if you go to if you've got it enabled, there should be a tab that you'll see called duplicate record sets that will show you what all your matches are. And you can, in fact, I think, Scott, if I was picking up on the one screen that you showed, that's what it was referring to. It looked like to me, was that duplicate record set tab where you could merge the records from a button. I think it said had.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, very good. Any other questions on duplicate rules? Anybody else using them in your org?
I'm literally working on setting them up this week.
Okay, good.
We just opened up some of our data to other users. We're always like very walled off between our advisory groups, and we're opening it up. So there's potential for duplication there.
Nice. Now, how does it work if you don't have visibility to a record? So let's say we've got, I'm just a user and I'm limited on the records that I can see. And I attempt to create a new record, maybe that's already an existing record. I just don't see it. What are our options as far as duplicate matching and rules there?
So, I mean, it depends on if it's like with our org, it's private. They're not even going to see it. We may be able to report on that, but they're not going to, if we don't have, most likely if you have a private setting or you're working across different companies, you're just going to allow it and perhaps report on it as opposed to blocking it, because you're just going to have too many to block.
Okay, so on the duplicate rule side, there is the ability to bypass or to override the sharing rules. Now it's not going to let me go see that record, but it will at least tell me that it exists. And then if I want to allow them to bypass it, I certainly can, but keep that in mind. There is the record level security as well on the rule.
Not that I want to go down a rabbit hole, but where do you turn on duplicate reports? I don't see that in my reports list, and I don't see it under report types.
So if you go under duplicate management, you'll be able to, let me pull that up.
Do you have a tab if you go under the app launcher for duplicate? I forget what it's called now. Duplicates.
Record sets.
Record sets, yes. Do you see that? And I don't think that will show unless you have it enabled or you've had it enabled at one point. I don't.
Yeah, I see duplicate record sets.
That's the object that you're going to create. You probably have to create your record type for your custom record type.
Got it.
Around that. It's not all that helpful, I'll be honest. Patrick's shaking his head too, because we've worked on it together and it's not fantastic.
Cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Any other questions on this? It's a great topic, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for some good questions related to this one. So, and things that you may or may not be as familiar with.
So
That's good
Terry,
stuff.
I'd like your opinion on, we use a third-party duplicate checker just because of the complexity with our communities and multiple lead owners. What is your advice for the group for starting down that path? So let's say for financial services, you have different financial advisors who own their own leads. They're all in the same firm, but the firm does not want to share leads between.
And the leads are the same person.
Yeah, they could be the
assigned to
same
different
person.
people.
Because, and I'm getting to this point because I do think there are genuine use cases for true duplicates based on whatever.
I suspect so, and I think that's a question that you have to kind of explore within your business processes to know what the right answer there is. I don't like to have duplicates in the system if I can avoid it.
Neither do I.
Yeah, so I would prefer not to have them, but this is one of those things where I always kind of give the caveat that best practices are great when they work for your business process. So they don't always work for your business process. So if you can avoid it, I'd like to avoid it. If you can't, then I would want a good reason around not doing it. As far as third-party products go, I'm a huge fan of like Cloud Dingo. I don't know if that's the one you're using or not. That's a fantastic tool, especially if you're looking for a way to completely automate your duplicate management processes. Patrick gave me a thumbs up there. Are you guys using it?
Yeah, we just implemented about a month ago, and
it's pretty
a
sweet.
lifesaver. Yeah.
Cloud Dingo. We're
Cloud
using
Dingo.
duplicate check right now, and I'm not very happy with it, to be honest.
Yeah,
it's too fuzzy. They have sliders, but then you lose the granularity of what's happening in those sliders to give weight to certain criteria.
Yeah, take a look at Cloud Dingo. See if it is a paid app, but it's pretty nice, and it's been around for years. Well before Salesforce went down the path of doing duplicates themselves.
So back to the study group, correct me if I'm wrong, the only native bypass is within that thing you just talked about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is true.
I think they've gotten better though with just like their internal, I mean, like what Salesforce has done for like checking for duplicates or for managing right before they get entered. I think they've come a long way from what they used to be, because it used to be pretty just black and white. If there's like duplicate email, you can either add it or not allow it. And I think when I was playing with it earlier this week, actually, like the way that my org is structured, we're an RIA, so we support various advisory firms across the country, and so there might be multiple the same region, right? And so the way that we had, because there's so many rules in the financial services business, we have to wall off data from each other when it's like wealth management, retirement. It's kind of, that's less, that's a little more gray area where yes, they can see it, but it's not, our groups don't like it, right? They're advisors, they want to keep it to themselves. But we were acquired, so some of our groups sold to our new parent account or to our new parent company rather, and some have remained independent affiliated advisor groups. And with them, we keep their data walled off, but then everyone that sold their business to our new parent company, we're just starting to open that data up so that all the groups can see each other's data. And so we're just specifically having to manage duplicates within that segment, and everyone else, like they can still technically compete against the groups that are part of our company. And so it's kind of interesting because I'm kind of figuring that out and working with rules. And so we use divisions. And so that's kind of each advisory group. And so if they're within this division, open it up. If it's not, then keep it walled off. And that's kind of interesting playing with it. But so far, I've been able to create rules within the native Salesforce environment.
Yeah, I would agree. There's a lot you can do in the native environment. There's just some things that I like the automation of tools like Cloud Dingo. where it just takes, once you get to that comfort level that it's finding the duplicates right, and you can just let it do its thing. That's something that Salesforce doesn't have yet, is that automation.
So do you feel like it's catching a lot more than what Salesforce would catch?
Patrick, I'll let you take that. What's your thought on that?
I do. We really struggle with Salesforce. I would pull up 2 records. They're duplicates. I can tell they hit all of our rules, but that duplicate flag wasn't catching for some reason. I have to like edit the field back and forth. So that's where I started looking into Cloud Dingo, and I just really like it because it's a dashboard that you can see everything. So you see, here's this rule or matching criteria I have. How many duplicates is it finding? And then you can click into them and it shows you, and you can merge right from there. So that's the manual way. And then as Terry said, when you feel comfortable, you can automate it. So I feel a lot more confident. You can get that view. It shows you all the duplicates and then merge them from there. When I first plugged it in, it was astounding to me how many duplicates we had that were like our normal rules that it was hitting. But I can't go find those very easily in Salesforce out of the box.
Okay, I gotta ask Terry. I typed in Cloud Bingo and I get a really cool website that tells me how to make bingo cards, but that doesn't give me Salesforce.
Dingo,
Dingo,
not bingo.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Cloud Dingo. Yes. Rebecca, are you guys on the Financial Services Cloud?
We're not. We
okay.
have Sales Cloud. We're enterprise, and then we're community.
Okay, I was just curious.
We looked at financial services, and just based on what we require our advisors to do, because we don't require all of our advisory groups to be on Salesforce. We just, whoever wants it, and then anyone that's been acquired, they're required to be on it because they have to enter in opportunities, and we track certain data points, and then we just integrated Orion. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's our like kind of account aggregation tool for our wealth management business, our
Sure.
independent wealth management business. And so there's incentives to using it, but it works with communities. It took a heck of a lot, and we had to get a third party group in to help us develop it, but honestly, it's a much less expensive way to get, at least a good group of them in, because it's like they're willing to pay, whatever for communities, but they were not willing to pay. Like when I looked a couple of years ago, it was like $150 a user, and they weren't budging at the time.
Yeah, and the reason I asked the question was just going back to Jude's question of, is there ever an appropriate time to do duplicates? And the Financial Services Cloud manages those relationships really, really well, which could be a way of getting away from having to have duplicates in your system.
Yeah.